Hey, what's up? Chris Seiter here, founder of Ex-Boyfriend Recovery. Today we're going to be talking about when it's too late to try to get your ex back. Now, I'm going to give you the very long version of when you can figure that out. But if you want the quicker version and you actually want a little bit more personalization, here's my recommendation to you. Actually go to our website right here, right now. You can simply just pause this video and open it up in another tab if you're on your phone or something like that. On my website, I've actually put together a special quiz designed to answer, hey, do you even have a chance of getting your ex back? Which answers the exact thing this video is covering. So taking the quiz, if you want the shortcut, is super simple. Simply look in the description below this YouTube video, click on the link you see there. It's going to direct you to a page that's going to ask you quite a few questions about you, your ex, and your time or your relationship together. It should only take you about 2 minutes to complete all of the questions. Once you do, we're going to take your questions, run it through an algorithm, and spit out a score so that you know what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back. We're also going to take your questions or your answers to the questions that we asked you and actually give you personalized advice on what you should do going forward to improve your odds. So again, taking that quiz is super simple. Simply look in the description below this YouTube video, click on the link that you see there, and we're gonna hook you up. All right, so that's how you get the short version of if it's too late to get your ex back. Let's actually teach you the long version of how to get your ex back, or if it's too late to get your ex back.
So when is it too late to get your ex back? What has to happen in order for your ex to basically never give you a chance? When should you be giving up? It's an interesting question. There's actually 4 things that I'd like to talk to you about today in regards to this question. Basically, I want to answer this question for you. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about is something I like to call the triangle theory. Now, I don't know if some of my peers are lazy, they don't like to talk about this, or they simply don't want you to know, but when I typically do research and I'm looking for topics on, let's say, what to do a video on, I will look and see what other people are talking about. It's interesting to me. And also one thing I've learned is the more specific you make a topic, the less likely people are to watch it. People tend to be drawn to broader type topics. So a lot of times when you see inquiries from people, they're asking like, hey, can I get my ex back if it's been months? Or hey, can I get my ex back if it's been years? And I think a lot of people aren't honest when they're actually making videos about these topics. It's possible, sure, but the chances are significantly lower. Now, why? Why is that? Well, we consider what your actual chances of getting your ex back look like if you were to chart it out. It kind of looks a little bit like this, sort of like a triangle. Right? So as you can see, when you first start off, when you first go through a breakup, your chances start off kind of low, but assuming you do the right things, and doing the right things typically means doing what we recommend in our book, Ex-Boyfriend Recovery Pro, assuming you do that stuff, your chances will rise and rise until eventually they will plateau. Basically, they will hit a point where this is going to be your window of opportunity. Your chances will never get better than they are at this point. And then if you kind of don't do anything with it, interest becomes lower and lower and lower until eventually it bottoms out. So ideally, if you're going to be trying to get your ex back, you want to do it right at this point, right when it plateaus, when your chances are the highest they possibly can be. But if it's been a long time, things tend to not work out so well for you, right? So I think when it's too late is simply a question of time, right? A lot of times, if you kind of look at where you are at on the triangle, that's sort of your broad general view of what your chances are going to be like. So if you can kind of figure out where you are in the triangle, that will give you an idea if it's too late or not. Now, everyone's triangle is different. For some people, the plateau can be in a year. For others, it can be in a few months. It just depends on your situation. And a lot of times we have to diagnose that by getting to know you and your situation. And again, if you want us to diagnose that, simply take our quiz that I talked about at the beginning of this video. But that's the first thing I want to sort of talk to you about and set the groundwork. The next thing I want to talk to you about is the idea of if you failed the no contact rule too many times. And I put this one here because it's sort of closely related to concept one, the triangle theory. The triangle theory is all about waiting too long. Well, the no contact rule is about failing the no contact rule and trying it over and over and over again. And I actually talked a little bit about this in a second video where people were asking me, hey, if I fail the no contact rule, will it work a second time? Well, yes, but it's not as effective. In fact, every single time that you try the no contact rule or you fail it and have to try it over again, it loses a little bit of effectiveness. It's not quite the same. Right? So the first time you attempt it, it will have the maximum potential of being effective. But let's say you fail it and you have to try it a second time. Well, the second time you try it, well, maybe instead of that maximum potential, it's only at 85% potential, and so on and so forth. And if that analogy doesn't work for you, imagine for a moment you're playing chess. Right? So you're playing chess with someone and you use the same strategy over and over and over again, right? Maybe the strategy works on your opponent the very first time. Maybe it works on them the second time. But the second a pattern is established, your opponent will be able to counter it and you start losing. And unless you're able to adapt or at least win with your strategy originally, your opponent will sort of get the upper hand. Same thing applies here. If you are constantly failing the no contact rule, it's not going to be effective the 10th time that you try it, right? So that could be another indication that it might be too late to try to get your ex back. The third thing that I think you need to look at is situations where you are too emotionally unstable. And for this one, I'd actually like to tell you a personal story. A long time ago, when I was in college, I met a girl. This girl was, at the time, probably the prettiest girl I had ever taken out on a date. And typically, I must have, anytime I had been out with a girl that was pretty, the personality usually would match. You know, it's sort of like, she wasn't just pretty on the outside, she was also pretty on the inside. But this one didn't really work out that way. She had been going through some very, very traumatic experiences through her life. Her parents had just recently passed away unexpectedly. She happened to mention that her sister had taken it really hard, and her sister was married to a man, but she was cheating on the man, and she was bisexual. She was cheating on the man with some other women. She started telling me how she would use drugs to sort of dull the pain. And I'm not kind of that way, right? And so all I'm thinking here is, wow, this is a very emotionally unstable person, and this is unattractive. Is that potentially insensitive of me? Yeah, probably, right? But I'm a little greedy when it comes to my own dating life, and I think most people are. We always want to do what's best for us. We don't want to really do what's best for them. So I think sometimes when you're with someone and they appear to be constantly emotionally unstable, they get put in that crazy ex-girlfriend or crazy ex-boyfriend category where you just sort of put them on that category and you just sort of walk away and you want nothing to do with them. You need to try to avoid being so emotionally unstable that it becomes a turnoff. And if you have done so many emotionally unstable things, it can potentially damage your chances significantly. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you about is the idea of you trampling on your ex's core values. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, this is kind of a situational thing. Every person has their significant core values, the sort of things that, you know, if you ever do this to me, I will never be able to forgive you. Everyone has those little ticks. And I often like to refer to this as the line, right? If you cross this line, I'm done. For me personally, it's cheating, right? If someone cheats on me, I just know this about myself. I just will not be able to get over it. I will not be able to forgive them. I am kind of ultimately very, very loyal when I'm with someone, right? My wife knows this about me. I'm unbelievably loyal, and I don't think I could forgive cheating. That's not always me, though. Other people can forgive. But everyone has that non-negotiable core value that they hold to and will not forgive no matter what. And if you've trampled on this core value, let's use cheating as an example, if you've cheated, there are some circumstances where some people just cannot get over that thing. And you need to figure out, if you trampled over your ex's core values, because if you did, that could potentially mean it's too late to have a chance. Now I realize this is kind of a depressing subject, right? We're talking about all sorts of negative things here. But I want to point out to you all of the situations I didn't include in this list. I didn't include if your ex has moved on to someone else, which you would think would be a no-brainer, but there's enough evidence and I've gotten enough proof over the years to show that's not necessarily too late. I've gotten a lot of successes. So don't freak out if, and also don't freak out if you feel like you've trampled on your ex's core value. What I'm talking about here are extremes, right? It's extreme if you are extremely emotionally unstable. I don't know really many people who are emotionally stable after a breakup. What I'm talking about is people who go to the extremes, who stalk, who have, restraining orders taken out against them. Then there are the people who fail the no contact rule like 15 times. It's okay if you fail it the first time. I expect that. It's okay if you fail it the second time. I expect that. It starts getting dicey when you fail it the third or fourth or fifth or sixth or 10th time, right? I'm talking about extremes here. So don't look at this and say, oh crap, I failed the no contact rule. It's too late. No, I'm talking about if you take this to the extreme. If you, okay, here's a perfect example. Look at the triangle thing, right? Let's say you're trying to get your ex back 5 years after you've broken up. Okay, that is an extreme thing. Trying to get your ex back a couple months after you've broken up, pretty normal, right? So don't freak out if you feel like you've committed one of these cardinal sins, right? I'm talking about people who turn the volume up to a 50, all right? So keep that in mind as you're watching this video.